Clarity looks like it might be cooked. We'll break that down for you. We've got the Fed being sworn in, and of course, we're going to be looking at the markets, and things are heating up. You guys don't want to miss it. Let's just start and thank our sponsor today. I want to thank our sponsor today, and that is Uphold. We've all been there. Expenses pop up right when the market's starting to heat up. It's not the right time to sell. The last thing you want to do is sell your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, your XRP, or even your stablecoin, USDC. This is exactly why Uphold launched the EXA credit card. When I found out about this, I was blown away. It's an instant line of credit that lets you borrow against your crypto without having to sell. All you have to do is just use your assets as collateral and spend it worldwide using a virtual Visa card. This is the coolest feature I love about this. There are no credit checks, and you can repay on a schedule that works specifically for you. It's the smartest way to stay long in the market while accessing your portfolio's value today. Download the Uphold app and get your virtual EXA card in just a few taps. All right, so let's get into one of the top news stories that just broke, and that is Tulsi Gabbard is resigning as Director of National Intelligence. So more of the cabinet starts to fall out of the Trump administration. When you look at her resigning, there's a few things that could happen here. First, I think, is the situation that she's kind of been out of the loop in the cabinet. And when you look at this position, which is very critical to what's going around in terms of conflict, national security, this is an issue I think I'm a bit more concerned about. One is who's going to take the role. Are they going to be pro-war? Are we going to see something that's heating up already in Iran? Is there something that we don't know about what's happening with the negotiations? All of that really puts a lot of pressure on the markets. And when you put pressure on the markets, you're putting pressure on clarity, and it is showing right now, dropping to 51% and continuing to fall as we look at really what's going on in D.C. And one of the things you have to consider right now is if Clarity Act continues to be an issue around floor time, which is the biggest issue right now, the real question is, do they have time to do this in June? So here's Eleanor Terrich, because the reality of whether a Senate can get two major pieces of legislation done amid the time constraints and competing priorities is beginning to set in. I would agree with Eleanor. I think this is an issue right now that I'm getting a little bit more antsy about, even though I have been hearing people in the industry claim that this still has a high percentage of passing. I'm a little bit more on the bearish side of this getting through. When you take a look at the June calendar, what you see here is nothing really in terms of availability. You've got 4th, 9th, 10th, 12th, 24th. All these are hearings that get extended into multiple days. The only thing that's probably even close is this one right here on the 24th, which is the future of payments. Here's the other problem that you're dealing with. If they're actually trying to do something by July 4th, time is getting very, very short. Now, could something turn around? Sure. Trump could pull a wild card. But the reality, I think, is that this is getting closer and closer to not getting through, at least by July 4th. I've heard many people that have been on our show in terms of analysts saying this could go all the way into September. So let's go to a clip here, because this is an issue that could actually be consuming the air out of D.C., and that is the Iranian War Powers Act. And they were going to vote on that. And this, of course, got kicked down the road. Take a look.
Anger on the floor of the House of Representatives Thursday after Republican leadership skipped a key vote on the war in Iran. Republican leadership stalled on the House floor for nearly an hour Thursday before they skipped the War Powers vote. The legislation has a bipartisan petition to support it, and that petition means the House is required to hold a vote on this when they return in June. Lawmakers are currently on a Memorial Day recess.
All right, so that's the House being required to do this back in June. Again, taking more time, because remember, even after going through Clarity going through the Senate, it still has to go to get the stamp of approval from the House. I want to go to another clip, because this is the Secure America Act that is also being ginned around D.C. as well, which also takes more time. Take a look.
Senators in the room from different parts of the Republican spectrum. Republican senators en masse pushed back at the White House today, saying, at least for now, President Trump's requests for funding have gone too far. That's the Secure America Act. It's large, as you can see, and it's almost entirely funding for ICE and Customs and Border Protection. That was poised for passage until the White House and Senator Lindsey Graham added that $1 billion. You see that there, that small slice of this bill for the ballroom and for security. After that, the President and Justice Department announced that $1.8 billion settlement with Trump to establish a so-called weaponization fund to compensate those thought to be politically prosecuted. That created both political and ideological havoc widely across the Senate Republican spectrum. So Senator Thune, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, called up the acting attorney general today to explain how this fund would work, to try and reassure senators. He gave them a one-page, basically bullet point document over how it would work, trying to reassure them. The opposite happened. After about 2.5-hour meeting, a very tense one, Republican senators instead decided they would go home and pass nothing because they were not reassured about that fund at all.
All right, so what you see here is a lot of activity in D.C. that is really non-crypto related. In fact, it's really more power struggles between the Democrats and the Republicans, and they continue to try to push a lot of things through, I think, before the midterms, because they are in control, at least right now. And I say they, meaning the Republicans, and I think that's why you're seeing so many of these different scenarios that are playing into this. And the only thing that's happening is it takes more time out of the potential to get this passed. And I think this is the problem right now that we are dealing with, is that we have a DC administration that is not really focused on where the digital asset market is heading. And I don't understand this. With the power of these lobbies, this is going to be critical going into the midterms. Maybe they know something that I don't around how this plays out. But if you just look at the way these things are coming together, it's not necessarily good. One thing that looks good but may not necessarily be good is the stock market, and this hits another all-time record. You've got other issues hitting right here. The S&P 500 volume soars to a new all-time high, and really it boils down to this right here. 10 stocks make up 40% of the S&P 500. Guys, think about that for a second. Almost half of the entire S&P 500 are sitting in 10 different trades. That's the kind of situation we're dealing with right now, which simply means it is the haves and the have-nots. That's the market that we are dealing with right now. I want to go to a further clip here because talk about a bear market. Tom Lee explains a bit more. Take a look.
But aren't you still calling for a pullback in stocks and something meaningful? Like the one we had already didn't really qualify, if you will, under what you were thinking could happen, right?
That's right, Scott. I think we had like what Ed Yardini would call a rolling bear market in things like Mag 7, and of course last year in energy, but in software, etc. But I think later this year, the market is going to confront a few things. You know, one, of course, is just your typical midterm seasonality, you know, the uncertainty into that. The second is that there is a day of reckoning coming because the inventory of petroleum products is short and not being alleviated anytime soon.
Tom, I want to make sure I heard you right. Are you calling for a rolling bear market in Mag 7 names? Because is that what you're looking for? You look for these stocks to become weaker at some point and dramatically so at some point this year? Is that what I heard you say?
No, to clarify, I think we've already had a bear market in Mag 7 and software. I think there's going to be a bear market in other stocks later this year, yes. But I think it's going to spare the Mag 7 and software, so it's going to be names that either got lofty or are going to be affected by the fact that there is a lot of supply of new stock later this year, or the companies that are going to get hit by this shortage in petroleum products. So I think there's reasons that we could have headwinds later this year.
All right, so you look at, just to kind of follow along here, I'm just going to run through some of the Mag 7 that I like, and you've got NVIDIA here that has been pretty much up and to the right over really since about March. Has been up. Let's go to MicroStrategy, which has been on the floor, down from what was 360 back in October of last year, and it's fallen down to 160 right now, so half that rate. Then you look at someone like Tesla, which has been somewhat sideways. So I don't know if he's talking about this, how this gets saved. There's Microsoft also down, Meta also very erratic but trending down. And then we'll go to Palantir, also another one that has been trending down, with the exception of just the last little bit of activity over the last week or so. So maybe the bear market that he's talking about is and has happened for these. Does this look forward? And are there some other things that start to get hit? Because remember, gold is still holding somewhat solid right now at 4,500, but it's somewhat sideways after really that all-time high right there that we hit back in, what was that, in January. So setting it around 5,500. So there's a lot of things right now. First of all, I think there's some opportunity here with volatility like this. There are some trades to be made, whether you're going into securities or whether you're doing something even in the crypto side of things, because there's a handful that actually have some activity going forward. So I'm still thinking that Tom is, remember, he still has a massive, massive stake in Ethereum. So all of this needs to get to a point where ETH does well for BMNR. That's Tom Lee in a nutshell. And I think the real question is, what will the rest of the market do with it? Here, of course, is looking at Bitcoin. And right now, Kalshi is saying that traders forecasting Bitcoin will not hit $100,000 this year. I'm hearing complete opposite from a lot of analysts that are pointing to all-time high this year for Bitcoin and others out there. You've got consumer sentiment officially falls to its lowest level on record, going back to 1952. I don't know anybody that was even born in the 1950s. It's down 10% last month. So think about that, guys. I don't even know how you would register that all the way back to 52, because the kind of consumers we have today are completely different. That could be actually worse than what the record was because of the kind of consumption that's going on in the United States today around consumers. This is a problem, I think, in general. Investors are pulling money out of Bitcoin and ETH ETFs at a record pace. We've got spot Bitcoin ETFs saw another 109 million outflows, making it 5 straight days of withdrawals. And of course, ETH also lost 32 million, extending their outflow streak to 9 consecutive days. So the two biggest assets in digital assets right now suffering on what has been the performance on Wall Street, and that has been the ETFs in general. Trump is set to swear in Kevin Warsh. It's happening on Friday, it just happened, as the first Bitcoin chair. We'll see. The other thing that I would say is he's the first chair that maybe got handed a big pile of you-know-what, because he's getting high inflation, a war that's active, he's dealing with consumer sentiment, all-time lows, and a very erratic market right now based on energy. Oil is really dictating a lot of this. How he plays this next few months is going to be critical. I think the question is whether or not he can stay independent. Here's what they had to say about that. Take a look.
And honestly, I really mean this. This is not said in any other way. I want Kevin to be totally independent. I want him to be independent and just do a great job. Don't look at me. Don't look at anybody. Just do your own thing and do a great job. Okay?
I'm thinking that stare is, don't listen to what I say, listen to what I told you. And that is cut rates. I don't think Warsh is going to do that. He's a bit more hawkish. I think he's cooked. Yeah, Kevin is cooked. That's the problem right now, guys, we are rolling into, because that, of course, goes into summer, which is when we might see some of these dips occur. The other thing that causes this to either bounce or possibly even recover, meaning a bottom could be in, is all really trickled into this situation right here. And that is the final draft of the U.S.-Iranian agreement is now somewhat in order. How many times have we heard this, guys? How many times have they cried wolf about this? Well, this is what they're dealing with right now. And it deals with a few things: comprehensive ceasefire. Parties must agree to refrain from targeting. Then you've got freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, sanctions gradually lifted. But the biggest issue that I think we've got to deal with is how are they going to handle the nuclear material? That's the real question that I think Trump is going to get kind of sideways on if they don't comply, and it could be the sticking point going forward. Okay, so I've got a clip for you that breaks down a little bit of where the Iranians have been utilizing Bitcoin. Warren's going to have a field day with this one. But they're using Bitcoin to basically stock their coffers so they can go out and create terrorism around the world, I guess. Let's take a look.
The companies pay the insurance companies in Bitcoin, and they get through the strait safely. That's the trade-off. It's a direct move to dodge our banks and scoop up a fresh source of cash. And this covers a much larger shadow economy. New estimates from a threat detection data firm show Tehran is sitting on a crypto pile worth a staggering $7.7 billion. That war chest has been expanding ever since heavy sanctions cracked down.
All right, so threat detection data firm, don't know who that is, where that 7.7 billion came in. I'm assuming this data is out there. Listen, it's on an open network. We should be able to track this pretty easily from a forensic standpoint in terms of what is actually going through the Iranians around the Strait of Hormuz. So hopefully we'll get some more data on this as we go forward. Let's go into another topic, and that is who really controls the Strait right now. Here's Piers Morgan.
Who controls the Strait of Hormuz?
Iranian military capability.
Who controls the Strait of Hormuz?
That was achieved in spades.
Yeah, but who controls the Strait of Hormuz?
Actually, I mean, the United States.
Oh, come off.
The problem is also Iran is threatening to harass shipping, but the United States actually does control the Strait of Hormuz because we have a navy and Iran does.
That's complete delusional nonsense. Of course they don't.
Well, then why can't Iran get its ships out?
Why can't the rest of the world get their tankers through?
Because they're not willing to take the risk of Iranian harassment. But that doesn't mean that they have like meaningful control over the Strait.
Just to be clear, you think the United States is controlling access through the Strait of Hormuz right now?
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
That's complete nonsense.
They have a full blockade on all the Iranian ports.
We've almost reached the stage. I'm not singling you out for this, but we've almost reached the stage of Baghdad Bob.
I guess we're having a semantic debate about control, right?
Semantic.
Like, obviously, Iran still retains the ability to harass shipping,
it's the crucial part of the whole thing.
Piers, let me use an example. You wouldn't say that Al-Qaeda controls American airports because we all have to go through the TSA to be concerned about whether they might blow up airplanes.
There's no
terrorism. That is what Iran is
That is the most. That's the most torturous argument I think I've ever heard. You're comparing the TSA to the Strait of Hormuz situation.
In the same way the TSA controls an airport, right?
So I'm not really sure what the problem is. How is it that the rest of the world's looking at this going, where's all our energy? If everything is as you guys are trying to sell it to me, and it's a bit of snake oil stuff going on here, then I don't know what the problem is.
Then the war's being won.
All right, so what this boils down to, guys, is energy. At the end of the day, if they don't get this thing open, it is going to affect nations around the world. And this is a concern right now because it also, I think, will affect what's going to happen in the markets. Oil is related to what's going on in crypto in a very, very big way. Here's the thing. I don't understand why oil isn't much higher than it is right now. And of course, you look at the coffers of what's playing into Asia, Europe, all of that is starting to get very, very thin. So this is going to get heated very quickly. And I think it's probably within the next 30 days, we'll see something major hit one of these major countries. And at that time, things are going to get dicey. So stay tuned. If you like this video, hit like and subscribe, drop a comment down below, and also join our free private member group. The link is in the description.